My mum said, "You'll do as I said if you love this family." I pulled out my phone and replied, "I love the truth more." Then I played the voicemail where she laughed about guilt tripping me into giving her my home. Here I am at 2 a.m., organizing audio files and screenshots like I'm preparing for a court case. My name is Brandon, I'm 30, and I'm about to weaponize my family's manipulation tactics against them. Some backstory first. I grew up in what I now recognize as a textbook narcissistic family dynamic. My mother, Denise, 54F, has always played favorites, and that favorite was never me. My younger sister, Lauren, 28F, has been the golden child since birth, while I've been cast as the family ATM and problem solver since I turned 18. I worked my ass off through college taking out loans while Lauren got her tuition paid in full because she's more delicate and needs more support. I lived in rat-infested student housing while she got a luxury apartment because it's not safe for a young woman to live anywhere else. I ate ramen for 4 years while she got a monthly allowance for necessities. But I never complained. I graduated with honors, landed a job at a tech company, and slowly climbed the ladder. 5 years ago, I finally saved enough for a down payment on a small apartment in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom place that was mine. I've been paying the mortgage religiously, even through the pandemic when my company had layoffs, and I had to take a pay cut. Lauren, meanwhile, got a degree in art history funded entirely by our parents, refused to get a corporate job because it would stifle her creativity, and has been living with our parents ever since. She occasionally sells a painting for a few hundred and considers herself an entrepreneur. Our mother enables this by calling her brave for following her passion. 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Lauren announced she was pregnant. The father is some guy named Ryan she met at a gallery opening who apparently isn't ready for commitment. Our mother immediately went into crisis mode, not because her unmarried daughter was having a baby with a deadbeat, but because where will the baby live? That's when they turned their eyes to my apartment. It started suddenly. Mum called me last Tuesday, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Brandon, honey, you know your sister's situation. She needs stability now more than ever. You're doing so well at your job. Surely you could afford to rent a bigger place. Mum, I'm not moving. I own this apartment. But darling, you're single. You don't need all that space. Lauren has a baby coming. The baby needs a nursery. You could just stay with us for a while or rent a studio somewhere." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want me to give up my apartment that I bought and paid for?" "Not give up, honey. Just reassign it. Keep it in the family. You could transfer the deed to Lauren and she could take over the payments. Lauren doesn't have a job, Mum." "Well, we would help with that, of course. And once you're married and ready to start a family, we'll help you too." That's when I knew this was going to escalate. See, they've always promised future help that never materializes. When I needed help with college, we'll help you with grad school. When I needed help with grad school, we'll help you with your wedding. It's always jam tomorrow, never jam today. I ended the call politely but firmly. That was my first mistake, being polite. They took it as weakness. The next day, Lauren called. She was crying. Of course, she's always crying when she wants something. "Brandon, how can you be so heartless? I'm going to be a single mother. Your nephew or niece needs a stable home. How can you prioritize your bachelor lifestyle over family? Lauren, I'm not giving you my apartment." "You're not giving it. I'll take over the payments. It's not like you're losing money. You don't have an income. Mom and Dad will help." "Then why don't Mom and Dad buy you an apartment?" She hung up on me. Then came the family dinner invitation. I knew it was a trap, but I went anyway, armed with something they didn't expect, my phone recording everything. The dinner was an ambush. My father, Thomas, who usually stays out of Mum's schemes, was there looking uncomfortable. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, and fellow manipulator was there. Even my cousin Rachel showed up, probably promised free dinner for her participation. They staged what they thought was an intervention. Mum started with tears. "Brandon, we're worried about you. You've become so materialistic, so cold." "This isn't how we raised you," Aunt Linda chimed in. "Family helps family. Brandon, when I was young, I gave up my car for your mother when she needed it." Note, I later found out from Rachel that this never happened. Linda sold Mum a broken car for above market price. Then came the guilt trips. Mum pulled out photo albums showing pictures of baby Lauren and me. "Look how protective you were of her. You always said you'd take care of your little sister." "I was 5, Mom." Family doesn't stop being family because of age, Brandon. Then the threats started, hidden behind polite smiles. You know, Brandon, it would be a real shame if something happened someday and you needed our help. Family always remembers who stood by them. Are you threatening to cut me off if I refuse to give Lauren my apartment? Of course not, honey. I'm only saying that when family helps family, that kindness gets returned. Then Lauren played her biggest card. She stood up, rested a hand on her still flat stomach, and gave what sounded like a speech she had practiced. Brandon, I'm scared. I'm alone, and I'm bringing a baby into this world. Every single day I wake up terrified that my child could end up without a home. How can you sleep at night knowing your nephew or niece might not even have a roof over their head? What kind of uncle would do that? What kind of man are you? That was when I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and played the conversation we had 2 days earlier. The one where she laughed about how she was going to guilt trip me and said Mom's plan was genius. She had accidentally pocket dialed me and left a voicemail that lasted 3 full minutes. The room instantly went silent. I've been recording everything, I said calmly. Every phone call, every text message, every email. I have Lauren admitting this whole thing is manipulation. I have Mom threatening to disinherit me. I have all of it. My mother's face went completely white. You recorded private conversations? Yes, Mom. This is a one-party consent state. It's perfectly legal. What are you planning to do with those recordings? Aunt Linda asked sharply. Nothing, as long as all of you back off. But if this keeps going, if I get one more guilt trip, one more manipulation attempt, or one more flying monkey sent after me, I'll post everything. Facebook, Instagram, the family WhatsApp group. Hell, I'll even make a TikTok series called How My Family Tried to Steal My Home. I bet it goes viral. My father finally spoke. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I have 17 recordings, 43 screenshots, and 6 videos. I even have the email Mum sent to her book club asking them to casually remind me how important family sacrifice is whenever they saw me at the grocery store. My mother's book club was one of the things she cared about most. She had spent 20 years building the image of the perfect mother with the perfect family. The idea of those women hearing how she really talked and what she really intended clearly terrified her. You're bluffing, Lauren said, but I could hear her voice shaking. I unlocked my phone and showed them the draft post I had already written. Is it normal for a mother to demand that her 30-year-old son give his apartment to his 28-year-old unemployed sister, asking for a friend? Audio attached. Within an hour, more than 200 of our mutual friends and relatives will see this, I said. That includes Dad's boss, Mom's church group, and Lauren's entire art community. Want to guess how they'll react? The silence was overwhelming. I got to my feet. Here's what's going to happen. This campaign ends today. No more phone calls, no more text messages, no more emails, and no more surprise encounters. Lauren will figure out her own housing situation like every other adult, and if anyone asks why I'm not helping, you'll tell them I've already done more than enough. Are we clear? For the first time I could remember, my mother had nothing to say. She simply nodded. As I reached the door, Lauren made one last attempt. I guess my baby and I are just going to be homeless then. I turned around. Lauren, you're living in a 5-bedroom house with Mom and Dad, and they don't even have a mortgage. They paid for your college education. You don't have student loans, you don't have debt, and you have parents who are willing to support you. You're about as far from being homeless as anyone can possibly be. Stop insulting real single mothers who are actually struggling by pretending you're one of them. I walked out, leaving all of them sitting there in stunned silence. Update 1. 3 days later. The fallout has been even worse than I expected. I need to write this down while it's still fresh, because I honestly can't believe what's happening. The morning after that dinner, I woke up to 17 missed calls. None of them were from my immediate family. They had gone completely silent. Instead, they were from relatives and longtime family friends. News had spread that something serious had happened, but my family hadn't managed to control the story quickly enough. The first person I called back was my grandmother, my mother's mother. She's 78 years old and doesn't put up with anyone's nonsense. Brandon, your mother called me crying around midnight. She says you threatened to destroy the family. Do you want to tell me what really happened? I sent her 3 of the recordings. About an hour later, she called me back. That bitch were the first words out of her mouth. My grandmother almost never swears. I gave that woman everything, and this is how she treats her own son. Keep those recordings safe, Brandon. And if she gives you one more problem, you call me. Before long, the family had started splitting into two groups. The relatives who had been victims of Mum's manipulation over the years quietly reached out to support me. The ones who had benefited from her schemes were posting vague Facebook statuses about family loyalty and how selfish this generation had become. But the real drama started after Lauren made a huge mistake. She posted on Instagram, "Some people forget where they came from. Money changes people. Pray for my baby and me during this difficult time. Folded hands. Hashtag single mom struggle. Hashtag family first. Hashtag betrayed." She thought people would take her side, but instead she opened the floodgates. Her comment section turned into a battlefield. A few friends showed sympathy, but others started asking uncomfortable questions. "Wait, don't you still live with your parents? Didn't Brandon pay for your car repairs last year? Girl, didn't you tell me last week you were getting your brother's apartment? What happened?" That last comment came from her best friend Nicole, who clearly had not gotten the memo to keep the whole plan quiet. Lauren deleted the post less than 2 hours later, but I had already taken screenshots of everything, including all 37 comments where people brought up the different times I had helped her financially while she was trying to paint me as selfish and heartless. Then Mom switched to damage control. She called me from a number I did not recognize. It turned out to be her friend Melissa's phone. "Brandon, please, let's talk about this like adults." "We already did. You tried to ambush me, and it failed. I'm your mother. Then start acting like it. Are you really willing to ruin this family's reputation over an apartment?" "I'm not ruining anything. I'm simply prepared to tell the truth. If the truth destroys your reputation, maybe you should ask yourself why." She started crying. This time it wasn't fake. These were real, messy sobs. "Brandon, please, my book club, my church, Thomas's job. You have no idea what this would do to us." "I know exactly what it would do. That's why it works. Back off. And none of it has to happen. Linda is telling everyone you're having some kind of mental breakdown. Then Linda can explain herself after I post the recording of her coaching Lauren on how to cry more convincingly." There was a long silence. "You have that?" "I have everything, Mom." Before hanging up, she begged me not to post anything until she had a chance to manage the situation. I agreed, but only if every bit of harassment stopped immediately. Update 2. 1 week later. The Cold War is still going, but a few unexpected things have happened. First, my dad called me. That alone was unusual because in 30 years I can count on one hand the number of times he has called me without Mum being behind it. "Brandon," he said, "I need you to know I had no idea this had gone so far. Your mother showed me the recordings you have. I'm disgusted. Dad, you were sitting at that dinner. I was told we were just going to ask you to help your sister. I didn't know anything about taking over your apartment. I honestly thought we were going to ask if you could help with a security deposit or something." I believed him. Dad has always been passive. He lets Mum run everything. That's always been his biggest weakness, but it also means he usually isn't the one actively causing the problems. "Son, I've moved into the guest room. Your mother and I need to have some serious conversations about how this family has been functioning." I honestly couldn't believe it. My parents had been married for 32 years, and this was the first real conflict I had ever heard about between them. "I'm not asking you to forgive anyone," he continued. "I just want you to know not everyone in this house is against you. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I should have done the same a long time ago." At the same time, Lauren's whole situation started falling apart. Remember Ryan, the baby's father, the guy everyone claimed wasn't ready to commit? Well, 2 days ago, he showed up at my apartment. "Bro, we need to talk," he said. I let him in because I honestly wanted to hear what he had to say. "Look, man, I know your family's been giving you hell over this apartment thing. Lauren told me all about it. But here's the truth. I actually want to be part of my kid's life. I've got a steady job. I can pay child support. I want to be a father. Lauren has just been telling everyone I'm a deadbeat because it makes her story sound better." I just stared at him. "Are you serious?" He pulled out his phone and showed me their text messages. Lauren had been telling him to stay away until she got my apartment. After that, they could figure out their relationship. One of her messages literally said, "Once I get Brandon's apartment, you can move in and we'll be a family." "I didn't even know about your apartment until her friend Rachel mentioned it," Ryan said. "That's seriously messed up. I thought she was just trying to find a place for both of us. With his permission, I recorded our entire conversation and added it to the rest of my evidence. The very next day, something happened that nobody in my family thought was possible. Lauren got a job, a real full-time job at a marketing firm. One of her friends from art school had recommended her. It wasn't her dream career, but it paid enough for her to afford a decent apartment. Mum called me later. For the first time in a long while, her voice sounded completely neutral. Lauren found a job. She starts on Monday. Good for her. She also found a 2-bedroom apartment close to work. Ryan is helping with the security deposit. Sounds like everything is working out. She was quiet for several seconds. Brandon, do you think we can ever move past this? That depends on you, Mum. What would it take? A real apology, not just for trying to take my apartment, but for years of favoritism, manipulation, and treating me like I was a resource instead of your son. And therapy. Family therapy. I'll think about it. Update 3. 2 weeks later. The change has been almost unbelievable. It honestly feels like I'm living in a different reality where my family finally understands what boundaries are. Lauren started her new job, and according to Rachel, who has somehow become my unofficial source of information, she's actually doing well. Every morning she's up at 6 o'clock, getting dressed for work and dealing with adults who don't put up with her usual dramatic behavior. It's been a real wake-up call for her. Yesterday she sent me a text. Brandon, I just wanted to thank you. I know that probably sounds strange after everything that's happened, but if you hadn't stood your ground, I'd probably still be living with Mom and Dad at 35, waiting for someone else to fix my life. This job is hard, but for the first time, I actually feel proud of myself. I didn't answer right away. I needed some time to process the fact that Lauren might actually be growing up. Mom, on the other hand, was having a much harder time. The perfect image she'd spent years creating had taken a hit. Somehow people found out there had been family drama. I have a feeling Grandma had something to do with that. Mum's book club friends started asking questions, and she couldn't stand not being in control of the story. Then she surprised everyone. She actually told them the truth. Not every detail, but enough. She admitted she'd been putting too much pressure on me to help Lauren, and that it had caused a serious family conflict. She also admitted she was learning to respect the boundaries of her adult children. One of her book club friends, Susan, even called me. Brandon, dear, I just wanted to tell you that it takes a strong person to stand up to family pressure. Your mother, well, she's always been a little overwhelming. Good for you. Update 4. 1 month later. Yesterday we had our first family therapy session. I made therapy a condition that wasn't negotiable if anyone wanted a relationship with me going forward. To my surprise, Mom agreed. Dad insisted on coming too, and Lauren wanted to be there as well. Our therapist, Dr. Samuel Chen, was a straight-talking man in his 60s who specialized in family dynamics and narcissistic behavior. Mom spent the first 10 minutes trying to charm him until he interrupted her. Denise, I've already read the intake forms from all 4 of you. We can skip the performance. Let's talk about why Brandon believed he had to record conversations just to protect himself. Mom immediately lost all confidence. The session was brutal. Decades of buried truth finally came out. Mom admitted she'd always favored Lauren because Lauren was easier to control. Dad admitted he'd spent years avoiding conflict instead of protecting me from Mom's manipulation. Lauren confessed she'd known for a long time that the family dynamic wasn't fair, but she was afraid of losing the benefits she enjoyed. For the first time, I explained how growing up that way had damaged my ability to trust people and build healthy relationships. Dr. Chen didn't soften his words. Denise, you've built a family system where one child became the golden child and the other became the scapegoat. That isn't love. That's manipulation, Mum cried. This time the tears were real. I only wanted my children to need me, and instead I've pushed one away and kept the other from growing up. Dr. Chen simply nodded. We've committed to meeting once a month. It's only the beginning, but it's a beginning. Update 5. 2 months later. I'm writing what will probably be my final update from my apartment, the apartment I still own, still live in, and will continue living in until I decide otherwise. Things in my family have changed more than I ever expected. Lauren and Ryan are successfully co-parenting. She's kept her job, earned a promotion to junior account manager, and even started paying me back some of the money I'd loaned her over the years. I told her she didn't have to, but she insisted. I need to do this, Brandon. I need to do it for my own self-respect. She's expecting a baby girl in 3 months, and they're naming her Chloe. When Lauren asked if I wanted to be part of Chloe's life as her uncle, I said yes, but I also made it clear that there would be healthy boundaries. Mom has been seeing Dr. Chen on her own in addition to our family sessions. The changes haven't been dramatic, but they're definitely real. The other day she asked me about my work. She genuinely wanted to know how things were going, not because she wanted something from me. We spent almost 30 minutes talking about a project I'm leading, and not once did she redirect the conversation back to Lauren or herself. At the end, she looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you, Brandon, not because of what you can do for this family, but because of the person you are." It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard those words from her. Dad and I have also started getting together for a beer every other Friday. Away from Mum's influence, I've realized he's actually a pretty interesting guy. He's told me stories about when he was younger, the dreams he gave up, and how much he regrets staying silent for so many years. He's started standing up to Mum now, not with anger, but with confidence. Their marriage seems to be changing, and honestly, it looks healthier than it's ever been. Last Friday, Dad looked at me and said, "You know what's ironic? Your mother respects you more now than she ever did when you went along with everything. To be honest, she's a little afraid of you now." "Good," I replied. And I meant every word. Last week, we had our first family dinner since the ambush. It felt different, calmer. Nobody asked me for money, guilt-tripped me, or tried to manipulate me. We actually talked like a normal family. At one point, Mum said, "I still can't believe you recorded everything." I shrugged. "I still can't believe you gave me a reason to." She nodded. "Fair enough. Aunt Linda still hasn't spoken to me, and honestly, I'm okay with that. Some relationships just aren't worth saving. Most of the extended family has moved on, although a few cousins quietly told me they were proud of me for standing up for myself. Rachel even texted, "You're basically a legend now. The cousin who took down Denise with an iPhone and a backbone." I laughed, but I have changed. I feel stronger and more confident. I've even started dating again because I'm no longer afraid my family will ruin another relationship. I still have every recording backed up in 3 different places. Mum knows it, and that's enough to keep her honest. It's no longer a threat, it's insurance. Looking back, I learned a few things. Keep records, set boundaries, stop enabling people. Therapy only works if people want to change. Sometimes you have to fight using the only language manipulative people understand. And remember, you can't choose your family, but you can choose how much access they have to your life. I still own my apartment. I've repainted it, bought new furniture, and finally made it feel like home. Sometimes I look around and smile, not because I kept the apartment, but because I finally found the courage to protect it. Yesterday, Lauren sent me a picture of the nursery in her new apartment. It's small but beautiful. She painted the walls, built the crib, and decorated it herself. The same sister who once insisted she couldn't live without my apartment built a home for her daughter on her own. "I'm proud of you," I texted. "Learned from the best big brother," she replied. Turns out we're both stronger than Mom thought. She was right. The real victory wasn't keeping my apartment. It was that all of us finally learned to stand on our own. Even Mom is slowly learning to treat us like adults instead of possessions. Our family group chat is active again, but now it's different. Dad shares terrible jokes. Lauren posts baby updates. Mom sends recipes without passive-aggressive comments. And I share photos from my hikes. Things still aren't perfect, and Dr. Chen says it'll take years to fully change old habits. But for the first time, I believe we might actually become a healthy family. And if not, I still have the recordings. 6 months after Chloe was born, I stopped by Lauren's apartment with a stuffed elephant and a bag of groceries. It still felt strange knocking on my sister's door instead of going to Mum and Dad's house. But it also felt right. Lauren answered with Chloe on her hip. "Your favorite niece refused to sleep again," she joked. "She's your only niece," I reminded her. "Exactly," she laughed. Chloe reached for me, grabbed my beard, and I couldn't help laughing. Moments like that reminded me how much everything had changed. Family no longer felt like a constant negotiation. It just felt normal. A little later, Dad arrived with coffee and instantly had Chloe smiling with his goofy faces. Watching him become a grandfather surprised me. Without Mum controlling every conversation, he'd become warmer, more confident, and finally comfortable speaking his own mind. Mum arrived last. Instead of using the spare key Lauren had given her months earlier, she knocked and waited until Lauren invited her in. It was a small change, but before therapy, it never would have happened. Respecting boundaries had become natural for her. I kept noticing little things like that. She no longer volunteered me for favors, stopped comparing Lauren and me, and when she apologized, she didn't make excuses. Those changes meant more than any speech. While Lauren was feeding Chloe, Mum walked over to me. "I want to thank you," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For not giving in. If you had given Lauren the apartment, I would have convinced myself I was right. I would have kept treating both of you the same way." She looked over at Lauren and Dad laughing together. Instead, I almost lost my son. That finally made me face myself. We stood there quietly for a moment before I said, "I'm glad you did." She smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because we both knew healing meant doing better, not pretending the past never happened. After dinner, Lauren took me out onto the balcony. "I have something for you," she said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a check for the last of the money she'd owed me. "You didn't have to pay it back this fast," I said. "I know, but I wanted to finish what I started." She smiled. "I spent years expecting other people to save me. It feels a lot better doing things myself." I slipped the check back into the envelope. "I'm proud of you. You already told me that." It was worth saying again. She hugged me, not because she wanted anything, but simply because she was my sister. When I got home, I stood quietly in my apartment. The walls were covered with photos from hiking trips, friends, and plenty of pictures of Chloe covered in mashed bananas. My apartment wasn't just a home anymore. It reminded me that protecting yourself isn't selfish, that healthy boundaries expose unhealthy relationships, and that people really can change if they're willing to face the truth. I still have every recording saved in several places, and I probably always will. Not because I expect another fight, but because they remind me of the day I finally chose myself. The funny thing is, I haven't listened to any of them in months. I don't need to. My real protection isn't on a hard drive anymore. It's knowing I'll never again mistake guilt for love, manipulation for family, or silence for peace. That's something no one can ever take away from me.